We run, for example, a tech learning series where we bring in not only faculty, but external practitioners and talk about what is going on in the real world. Like, this is the problem that I am working on right now. Hey, let's talk through it and make it a real live exercise.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Byte. I'm your host, Mo Hafez, and we are here for a special episode at the AI Plus Expo in Washington, D.C. And I'm joined by a special guest, Carlos Bortoni of the University of Virginia's Darden School of Business. And you guys have a booth here actually at AI Plus Expo.
Now we do.
And it was wonderful to see what you guys are doing with technology. And so I wanted to get a chance now actually to talk with you about how you guys are incorporating technology in higher education. This is a topic, of course, that we love to explore, especially on this podcast, because, and maybe you'll agree with me here, but to a certain degree, education needs a massive reform. And higher education obviously needs to lead the charge on this, but in many cases, we find that they are reacting. Mm-hmm. And it's about really getting ahead and figuring out how to educate the next generation of workers. And so, what I saw you guys doing, I figured this would be great to talk about here because you guys have the potential to be able to teach others how to do this correctly. So tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing at Darden with technology, and actually before even doing that, how you got into it.
Absolutely. And first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be having this conversation with you today and with everyone who's watching this. So from the University of Virginia and with Darden in particular, we're at a really, really exciting time. We're in an inflection point in terms of how we are approaching tech as an industry and as part of our kind of like normal rhythm of business, right? So when you look at a top 3, top 5 MBA program like Darden, there are many things that make the institution unique. It's curriculum, it's world-class faculty, students, but more importantly, I think for us, it's our DNA, right? Like the way that we think about entrepreneurship, innovation, technology within the ecosystem and the type of ecosystem that we're trying to build outside, that's really important. Yeah. And the part that you mentioned that really struck with me and the conversation that we've been having here at the expo is exactly what you're saying. Like higher education as an industry has to change. We have a place at the table in terms of leading some of that charge. And I would even challenge us to go further in the sense that education as a system really needs to look at itself, not just higher ed or K-12 or workplace, but really what I used to call like K-20W. Like how are you creating an entire pipeline of talent that goes up and downstream depending on what skills you're trying to develop. And of course, higher ed has an important role to play in that.
Of course. And we're, the AI Plus Expo is all about, AI as a strategic initiative for the US, right? And this is how we stay competitive. And part of it, obviously, we have the tech. We're surrounded by the tech, but it still goes back to people. And it still goes back to the jobs that we need to be educating for. So how has Darden been approaching this, especially the business school? How are you guys training the next generation of leaders and of professionals in this coming age of AI?
Absolutely. I think one of the main differences you see across different programs are kind of like the emphasis between knowledge, tools, and then actual skills, right? So I would argue that knowledge is everywhere. It's free. It's accessible. Like you don't really need to go,
that's right,
to school anymore to acquire knowledge.
That's right.
I would argue further that a lot of the tools that are accessible now, and particularly with artificial intelligence, every single vendor is giving you a playbook for how to best use it.
And highly accessible, free as well.
Totally free.
Google,
you can
Microsoft,
get certified.
Yeah.
It really brings down the barriers, which I think is really exciting as an always on learner.
Yeah.
And in particular, I would argue for folks who need to reskill and upskill as they're going through these transitions. So I think that's we got that. You got the knowledge part, you got a tool part where different programs can really make a difference. And what I would argue as an alum as well, that Darden really comes to shine is how we're teaching how to think, how we're really making sure that every single one of our graduates understands not just the fundamentals of business or the fundamentals of strategy, marketing, so on and so forth, but the role that each one of us has as leaders in business to drive that innovative thought process within the organizations, making sure that we're bringing in the right stakeholders as part of that process, and quite selfishly in the area of AI, making sure that this is done responsibly. Darden is the first MBA program that made ethics a requirement as part of their curriculum. Like, that is a very important part of our ethos.
Okay.
Mild pun intended. And the way that we approach artificial intelligence bleeds into that, which includes our brand new $100 million plus AI Institute that just got spun out last year. Ethics is really part of that bedrock for how we're thinking about AI.
And I'm so glad you said that. We very much care about ethics. I very much care about AI ethics. And it's not just a greenwash or a blue washing term here where we're like, oh yeah, we got to do ethics. It's this idea that everybody can go to YouTube University and learn how to, not just code, but how to build agentic AI models. And as you mentioned, the resources are out there from all the major companies in terms of how to use their tools to create, which is really awesome, fantastic innovation. But what we don't want to do is foster a set of engineers that engineer for engineers' sake. In other words, they don't think about they don't ask the right questions about how this technology will end up affecting society or its users or what have you. So this ethics concept really needs to be taught in higher education, right? It's gotta be embedded in some kind of formal education.
Yes.
And it really makes me happy to hear that this is a core part of what you guys are doing at Darden. Now, as far as the tech side is concerned, so that's great. I'm glad that now that we've got that baseline, fantastic. So now, what are you guys doing from a tech perspective also to prepare the next generation of leaders, especially when you're talking about business school, right? Like, how have you got the students there to adopt the tech and kind of have not just adopt it, but learn how to lead with it, learn how to create with it?
Love that question. And I think it's also very timely. So you asked earlier, like how I got into coming back to Darden and getting that into the tech ecosystem. So I'm a former consultant by training. I worked in tech. And when Darden, and in particular the Baden Institute for Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Technology reached out and said, hey, we're in the process of launching a brand new tech hub initiative. It's meant to be a cross-functional effort to develop the right skills for folks that are interested in tech. They want to pursue it actively post-graduation. But we also realize that this is a lifelong journey. And the analogy that I like to use is, unless you're selling bubble gum out on the street for cash, there's always going to be a tech element in whatever role, whatever industry you want.
Yes.
So once we get that out of the way, let's make sure that we are including these concepts and the right tools, et cetera, and it's part of the curriculum. So with Darden, everyone goes through a core curriculum, classic stuff, all the main parts of general business. Students then go into their electives. They can pick programming, quantitative data analysis, data visualization, all the other stuff if you want to concentrate in that field, including with artificial intelligence, with a number of new courses that have been rolled out over the last couple of months. But then where my team comes in as part of this new Tech Hub initiative is, well, let's build the infrastructure and an ecosystem that surrounds the formal environment and give you access to these types of connections. So we run, for example, a tech learning series where we bring in not only faculty, but external practitioners and talk about what is going on in the real world. Like, this is the problem that I am working on right now. Hey, let's talk through it and make it a real live exercise. We run obviously a bunch of different events, both here in DC and down in Charlottesville. We go, we travel all over the place. But one of the things that you mentioned that I'm very happy, because we just literally did this a couple months ago, is how do we make sure that we take a student, pair them with industry, give them a hypothetical problem to solve, and actually have hands-on keyboard and build that. So we partnered, again, we're part of the broader UVA ecosystem. So we partnered with a UVA alum, former Google entrepreneur, runs his own consulting firm now, Seasons Solutions. He said, hey, I want to get involved. What if we did a hackathon? And why don't we bring in some folks from Google and we do this together? And let's go. So we literally went from idea to execution in the span of weeks. We spun this up in about 2 months. And we, alongside Google and Seasons Solutions, had a set of tools to take MBA students who are not generally known to be coders or particularly technical. And go from 0 to 60 and learn all about the different tools that you can build agentic AI using Google Cloud products and services.
Yeah.
So, we had everything from fraud detection in e-commerce to pharma development to the team that won the competition, which was all about disaster relief and disaster response.
Awesome.
So if we're able to combine theory with practice, with industry and the actual tools and make that punchy and agile, you have a very unique formula that you don't see very often.
And I really appreciate that. Very, very like-minded. I mean, one of the things is we've incorporated AI at the Krieger School of Johns Hopkins in the climate and energy program, right? The EPC. And it's the idea of AI touches everything. So it touches all of these different aspects. And so we need to combine real use case and not just use case, but also getting the students to work with the tools. So it's not just theoretical knowledge about, we use it for climate prediction and modeling and all that kind of stuff. Great. But where the rubber hits the road is, how are you going to be using these tools? And even if you're not a technical person, you need to have an understanding of how to do that. And from what I'm hearing, it sounds like that's what you guys are also are doing very much, but you're doing it across the whole Darden school. And I want to hear about your experience with that. How has it been in terms of reception? Mm-hmm. But more importantly, how have you been able to actually, and this word is used often, scale it, right? But this idea of how are you getting it to spread? Because you can't force people to come to these trainings. So there's got to be some kind of a train the trainers model, or how is that fitting into your strategy?
That's a great question, and I think it literally came up last night at a reception that we hosted with District Angels after the sessions.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it just goes back to the ethos of the school. Hey, first of all, I'm a part of the program, so you can't tell me that the way I'm thinking is wrong, because I am literally what you trained, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, the Batten Institute for Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Technology, we are the engine of innovation internally within the school, and that gives us a certain level of latitude to just think outside the box and try stuff.
Love
right?
it. Yeah.
And also, for us to really drive change, and I saw this time and time again when I was working in tech and in consulting, and you kind of alluded to this, you got to bring everyone on board, right? So for us, and the way that we think about it within the Tech Hub initiative, we have to work closely with admissions, because we want to bring more students with that background and that interest through the program.
Yeah.
We got to work closely with career services and making sure that we are finding new partnerships with different companies, your usual suspects, but also other startups, other companies that may not even be on our radar, and matching that talent from Darden, not only immediately for your summer internship or post-graduation, but that lifelong learner model where our alumni should also be able to be part of that ecosystem. We're here at SESP. We're a member of Northern Virginia Tech Council. I was on the CIRCO for the AI Impact Summit a couple of months ago. So all of these things come into play because we're trying to change the pace.
Yes.
So we're not running at higher ed speed. We're really trying to go a little bit closer to private sector.
Yes.
And that means, we're going to make a lot of small bets. We're going to make the investments.
I love that.
We're going to test. And if it's working, great. We're going to iterate and we're going to do it again next year. And we're going to start, to your point, we're going to scale.
Yeah.
But that requires, number one, trust. We put students first. That is our North Star.
Yeah.
We believe strongly in the mission and the impact that we can have in our students' lives, both professionally and personally.
Yeah.
And then obviously making sure that we're bringing in all these different stakeholders along with the vision and to do this quickly. And again, we've been doing this for a year and a half, which in higher ed terms is a blink.
Yes.
But because we've gained that trust by putting the school and the students first. And again, this is not about Batten. It's not about Tech Hub. This is about Darden as an institution.
Yes.
I've been very appreciative of our colleagues being how do we help? Where do we start moving the needle and go faster?
Phenomenal, Carlos. The signs are on the wall here. You guys have an innovator's mindset here, and you're bringing that to higher ed at Darden, and that's phenomenal because you recognize that as fast as the technology is moving, you need to experiment responsibly. But you need to experiment. You can't just kind of sit behind this and wait and see, because by experimenting, you are helping shape it in all the right directions. And I appreciate that you're we're there, we're on the ground, we're throwing out innovative ideas, and we're getting feedback and we're iterating. That's an active role in this. And as a higher education institution that is tackling AI and the technology in this way, I commend you guys. You're ahead of the curve. What would you say, and this is a question I love to ask, what would you say is one of the biggest challenges right now for higher education institutions when it comes to adopting tech? And especially as somebody now who's, because rubber hits the road, right? You're doing it, but I'm sure it hasn't been easy. Certain things of it have been maybe, I don't want to say difficult, but have presented certain challenges. I want to hear what some of those challenges are, just kind of, for those who are other universities that might be considering doing something like this, I want to kind of put it into perspective so that the fear is not overblown.
Absolutely. So I think there's a combination of factors that can make it hard for any institution to go from 0 to 60 or 0 to 100 quickly. And one of it is higher ed as an industry is relatively cautious. It's a slow industry, right? If you're a public university, there's a lot more hoops to jump through. Getting courses approved, there is a process to get new courses or certifications, et cetera, to get across the finish line. So that is a reality of the industry. I don't know how fast that can change. And that's where finding willing actors within the institution and outside can make a difference. So, if we know that it would take us X number of months to get a new course approved, we can still pilot extracurricularly. Right? Like we can still teach outside the classroom.
Right.
We partner with our student clubs. We partner with alumni. We partner with, I like to say, like, people who want to do cool stuff and have the energy to try cool new things. Let's find these people and let's bring them into the fold, so that we are setting the stage for the other things that we know needs to happen. So one is like making sure that you have those players. Number two, there's also an element of making sure that you have the right governance model that empowers some of this stuff. So whether it's in the curricular side or like data, if you're really trying to be more data driven, that requires, our systems talking to each other? Do we understand what those life cycles look like? And if we don't, let's build the infrastructure to make that happen.
If you're not measuring or monitoring, then you're not learning.
Correct.
Right? This is Steve Jobs talked about this idea of like, you're getting the process to go through, but what are you learning from it?
Correct. Like if you can measure, like, are we really making a difference? Like, are we telling the right story if we can measure that? And I think, with Darden, there was a lot of work that was done before I joined the team that I think allowed some of those conditions for us to have the conversations, to ask those questions, and then start thinking, well, like if this is the long-term vision for the tech hub, if this is the long-term vision for what we're trying to do at Darden, well, then let's make sure that we are being conscientious of our different stakeholders, that we have the right guidelines and parameters for how we want to start measuring some of these changes over time. How do we make sure that our stakeholders know what's going on across this effort? And then finally, well, this is again something that should go outside our own walls. So how do we bring in UVA alums? How do we bring in Darden alums who are excited to do this? And ultimately, and this is where how we think about entrepreneurship at Darden through effectual entrepreneurship, how do we build that crazy quilt of people that have the right skill sets and mindset and background and connections to go and do something that is truly unique and special?
It reminds me of, there's a piece I wrote about this recently. It reminds me of Thomas Edison's Muckers, right? Bringing all these different, academics and researchers of different disciplines and fields together as a community. And I believe that's, what you're doing. You're fostering this innovation mindset by bringing all these people together. So as an AI strategy expert, especially doing it, I would call you that, it's doing that at Darden and doing it for higher ed. What would be one takeaway that you would, leave to other higher education institutions about how to adopt AI responsibly?
Sure. I would not call myself an AI expert. I will say that modestly. I do think that there's an important change management aspect that makes AI integration both interesting and difficult, right? And I think that the part of the challenge is, are we having the right conversations as an institution in terms of, well, what do we even mean by AI? Is it as a tool for assignments? Which, yes, it's an important part of the conversation. Is it something that's going to be embedded in every course, in only electives? Like, that's the type of difficulty that you're seeing when you're trying to approach AI from a purely classroom pedagogical perspective. And I think that's where you really need to bring in the particular lens, right? Like, well, yes, but you're not going to say no to AI when everyone in the workplace is using it already. So you can't put that genie back in the bottle, but you can definitely think about, well, what is the best way for us to move forward and train people responsibly to use that. So I think for folks that are trying to be innovative and trying to push that envelope, it's a combination of talk to everyone, understand what are the strengths and weaknesses in terms of what they're trying to implement, and what is the timeline, the time horizon that they're trying to play with. And I like to say sometimes, on our team, like we're basically in an orchestra type of a rhythm. Like we know that certain things will go faster in different sides of the house, and we just incorporate that into the model in our normal rhythm of business.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, wins begin wins, right? Like if you're starting to make those investments and you're getting traction in one side of the house, sharing those wins with the rest of the house matters, because then, like we've never done this before, or we hadn't thought that the timeline would be realistic, or we didn't know there were partners out there that would be willing to raise their hands. But if you start showing those wins, then everyone is ready to rumble. And again, I'm very, very lucky to be at a place like Darden, where that is part of the DNA, where we regularly engage with industry and researchers and our alums, and everyone is ready to help. So I think I had it easy, but it also takes a village, right? Like it's not a one person effort. I think something that the Batten Institute has done really, really well under the auspices of Darden, and then as part of the broader UVA community, is that we are one UVA. Every school obviously has their own culture and their own objectives, but to the extent that we are able and willing to raise our hands and say, hey, like, yes, we're doing this for Batten, or yes, we're doing this for Darden, but by the way, School of Engineering, School of Data Science, like everyone else should come along on the ride, and how can we also push the broader agenda for the university, knowing that we're only one small part of the puzzle.
Well, Carlos, it's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate the humility too. I mean, not even wanting to go by the title of AI expert. We're all learners. This is a rapidly advancing field. But like I said, I think that you're very humble. You guys are doing some great things. And I appreciate you sharing your learning with us on the podcast here on Beyond the Byte. Thank you so much for being a guest. And it's been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you so much. To be continued.